Well, hello, writers. Welcome to episode number 497 of Ink in Your Veins. I'm Rachael Herron. I'm so glad that you are here with me today as I'm talking to Amy Nielsen about critique partners and blocking scenes. And she is lovely and so much fun. You will enjoy this interview so much. I'm still sick, recovering, but I have been flat for the last week. This is the first time I've sat at the desk. So I will not annoy you with my voice, except that I do want to tell you Amy's bio, and then we'll get into the gorgeous interview. Here we go. Amy Nielsen spent 20 years as a youth librarian, sharing her love of books with young readers. She's the author of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, Understanding Autism Spectrum Disorder. It Takes a Village, How to Build a Support System for Your Exceptional Needs Family, and the Florida Book Award-winning YA novel, Worth It. Amy's also a literary agent, a freelance editor, and owner of Mayflower Media. When not reading or writing, Amy and her family can be found boating on the waters of Tampa Bay with a canine-co-captain in a mermaid life vest. All right, I hope you all are doing well. Get some of your own writing done. Enjoy this interview, and I'll be back full force next week, I bet. I hope. If not, I'll be gentle on myself. Here we go. Go. Well, I could not be more pleased to have you on the show today. Will you please share your name and pronouns with us?
Absolutely, and thank you for having me. My name is Amy Nielsen, and my pronouns are she and her.
I am so excited to have you. And one of the reasons is that you are one of those people who wears a lot of hats. You are
Mhm,
writing in different genres. You have had different past lives. One of them is that 20 years as a youth librarian. You
mhm.
are also a literary agent and a freelance editor and the owner of Mayflower Media. How the hell do you get your writing done? That's what I would like to know.
Well, I want to know how the hell do you write so many books?
Slow and steady. If you do two a year for 15 years, it adds up.
Yeah. Actually, I was peeking at a couple of your thrillers that I think are going to throw my next to be read pile. And I'm in a thriller mood right now. That's all I've been consuming, except
Me
for
too.
some, mostly a couple other things. But,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm an everything, everywhere, all at once type person. And so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I tend to jump from one project to the next. And I don't mean that like in a scatterbrained way that I don't get things done, but I just like
hmm
to fill my creative brain with a lot of different things to do.
hmm
And so that's why I've just kind of started so many different endeavors. But I do keep within all of those different parts of my job, small client lists. And so I think
Mm.
that's what helps me to give more, to spread myself a little thinner because I like to keep more of a boutique type client list and agency.
hmm
So,
how do you structure the writing inside the days? Because I know for myself and my listeners will know this. It's always for me, that's always the first thing to go. I feel like everything else gets more important. So how do you prioritize that?
I actually heard you talking with a guest about this on, I think, your most recent episode.
Oh, cool.
Um, and so today, actually, I was talking with my colleague, Tina Swartz, who is the founder of the Purcell Agency. And she and I both were like, we need to start writing again. And she's like, I feel so guilty taking time away from my clients. I'm like, I know I feel the same way. So actually, today, ironically, that you're asking me this, she and I decided to start doing a scheduled Thursday sprint, and we actually start tomorrow. So I had
How
no
fun is
idea.
that that you have built that now with your coworker, your peer in the agency,
Yeah.
that you're both going to focus on that and support
Yes.
each other in not feeling like it's taking time away from the
Correct.
clients, which it
And the
isn't.
good, yes, and the good
Yeah.
thing is this, that my next project is already outlined. I've written the query, I've written the synopsis. I feel like it's already written. So I'm hoping that the process will run a little smoother than my debut, but we'll see.
Tell us a little bit about writing the debut. What was your process like when you were writing that?
Sure. Well, I was kind of thinking about my process. And again, I'm an everything everywhere all at once. So I'm writing everywhere you can imagine. But the one thing that I did do systematically, and I don't do systematically often, but when I do it. So, um,
Kindred
and
spirits, you and I on
right,
that, yes.
exactly. So I really systematically did a critique partner, or alpha reading program, and then beta reading program. And the beta reading program is what I'm really excited to share because that was so super fun. But I knew that writing is a solitary creative endeavor, but getting your work across that finish line, at least as quickly as possible. It's a community effort. And I really, really enjoyed building my writing community. So the first thing that I did after I felt that I was ready to share my work with someone else, because that's very vulnerable,
Hmm.
is I went looking for the right critique partners. And I really think that's the first place to start. And I found one critique partner in a Twitter group for young adult authors. And
Hmm.
that was probably in 2019, and we still chat almost every day. And my other critique partner I found in a Facebook group for women writers, and it's the same thing. She and I chat most every day. Actually, the three of us now are critique partners. And it wasn't that the first two were the right fit. It's kind of like speed dating. You want to make sure that you and this person generally get along, that you have the same values, the same morals. That's really important because you're putting that stuff on the page, even if it comes through in subtext,
Hmm.
and that you feel like you have something to offer to their work. I couldn't be the critique partner of someone who writes epic fantasy because I would have nothing to offer. But I
Hmm.
do have my critique partners don't write all in my same age range and genre. One of my critique partners writes sapphic romance, and I write
Hmm.
gritty YA. And so when we were working together closely, she'd say, Amy, I think your character needs a hug right now. And then I would say to her, Dana, they've had this fabulous date for a chapter, and I think something needs to go wrong. They need to get in an argument. And so I really think that having someone that's not the exact type of writer that you are can benefit you in that critique partner space. And then our third critique partner writes both of what we write. She writes young adult gritty, she writes sapphic romance, she writes fantasy, she writes absolutely everything. So she's one you can bounce any ideas off of. So I think first is really finding your people. They're going to become your writing besties. And then secondly, when I was ready to then share my work with alpha readers, which everyone can kind of have a slightly different definition of alpha readers and beta
Hmm.
readers. But in this context, I'm describing alpha readers as the first people that you're going to share your work with, kind of outside your critique partners. This can be where you're using family members and friends that don't know much about the craft, people that you know, and you're asking them to read this and give some initial impressions. And when I used alpha readers, it was family and friends. It was people that knew me personally and knew this story because it was based on my real life lived experiences, even though
Hmm.
it was fiction. And then I gave them some questions. And I think that's important to give guidance. So I have a couple of alpha reader and beta reader guides that I've made over the years. And one I made was just kind of like, did you resonate with the protagonist? Yes or no? Were you rooting for them? Was the antagonist three-dimensional? Were there any did the beginning pull you in? Were there any places that the reading that it sagged or that the pacing slowed? Just some very basic general questions for your alpha readers. And you're not expecting them to tell you where you missed a period, which they'll want to.
Oh,
Tell them don't
they
do
will
it,
be so excited
but
about that. Yeah.
or a misspelled word because this is the very beginning of
Yeah.
11,000 revisions, but just
Yeah.
focusing on the story and how it made them feel is kind of in the beginning. And then once you get that feedback, you know, go through it and see what resonates and then do your next revision. And then for my beta readers, I did something that I hadn't seen done before, and it probably has been done because everything's been done before. But I wanted a different experience for myself and
And
for
let's
my
clarify that
readers.
beta readers for people who use them, and not
Yeah,
everybody uses all of these
yeah,
levels. But beta readers are for after you've taken on board some advice or you've had some thought and you've done a bunch of revision. So this is a later draft
absolutely.
than the alpha reader
100%.
saw. Yeah.
Yes, so the alpha readers are giving that initial feedback. And then before I went to beta readers, I had done multiple other revisions myself,
Yes. Good.
developmental, line, copy, etc. I wanted it as clean as possible as I could get it. And so what I did is I went to a different group of contacts that I had, and it was a Facebook group of moms that all had babies born the same
Mm.
month and the same year. So my youngest son, I have four, was born when I was 45, and ironically, all of my friends were done having children. So, but I wanted the experience of sharing pregnancy with other women like I had before. And so I joined this Facebook group, and it's been 10 years, and we're still active participants in this group, and all of our babies are turning 10. So that tells you how long it took me to get this book
Cute.
published. So I went to them because we had a lot of shared experiences. We all were moms. Many of us, and this book is about teen pregnancy, domestic abuse, poverty. And so a lot of the moms had lived some of those experiences. So it was people that also that they read in that genre. So I was looking for people that could relate to the experiences of the main character, who read in that genre, and could give me a little more deeper feedback. There were some writers in that group as well. And so how we structured this beta reading experience is I created an online Facebook group and I would drop a chapter a week, Netflix style. And
How fun.
they could respond in real time and see each other's comments. And it was kind of like watching a Netflix series with your coworkers and then water cooler talk the next day.
I
And
say how fun, but for many people, they would be like, "Oh my God, that sounds like my worst nightmare is to
oh,
watch people
it was
like."
amazing. It was amazing. And again, I went like this is the place to correct spelling and, and
Right,
grammar and things
right.
like that. That's down the road. But to give me ideas, to theorize, and sometimes they would theorize things that I had that were incorrect, but I thought that sounds way better than how I actually did it. And
Yeah.
so in real time, I'm revising as I'm watching 10 readers read my work in short increments. And it was amazing. Sometimes new chapters would materialize. Sometimes characters would disappear. Sometimes characters would appear based on their feedback. And the most interesting thing that happened at the end when we finally finished the last chapter, because I always from the time I started that story knew where it was going to end. But after the entire group read the last chapter, the next morning I'm getting all these screams at me via, exclamation points and in all caps. We want an epilogue. What happens next? And I had never even considered writing an epilogue. I had no idea what to even put
Wow.
in it. And so I tell my husband, I'm like, my beta readers want an epilogue, and I have no idea, zero inspiration. And he goes, I know exactly what it should be. It should be XYZ. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's it. And I wrote it, and it's pretty much exactly how it is in the the polished or the published manuscript
Yeah.
today. So, and that gave them the happy ending that they needed, or I don't want to say the happy ending, but it gave them the closure.
Like the feeling of
And
completion. Yeah.
for to see a collective group give you the same feedback, that's when you know as an author that it's something valuable to your reader. And so you want to deliver that to them.
I have in my almost 10 years now of doing the show, I don't think I've ever heard anybody use beta readers in that way. And I think it is a fascinating, wonderful, slightly terrifying thing to think about doing. And I want to
Hmm.
hasten to say, people, that I always say, all my listeners know, don't show anybody anything too early because it can break the
Absolutely.
process. But you are a tough cookie. You knew what you were doing and you did it with purpose. I do have students sometimes who show like the person they love the most, the draft
Yeah.
too early, and they give the wrong facial expressions and then they never go back to the
Yes.
work.
Right.
So
Well, and
we're
I had
careful.
worked probably for 2 years with my critique partners
Yeah.
prior to
Yeah.
this. And
Oh, yeah.
I had worked a short period of time with a book coach, and I had worked a short period of time with a professional critiquer.
Right.
So I was, even before I got to my alpha readers, I felt pretty confident that
What
it was not a disaster.
what's a professional critiquer?
There is a website called Critique Match. I think it's
Uh-huh.
critiquematch.com. I'm pretty sure that's where it is. And it's where you can hire people that do professional critiquing, so they have some editorial experience, but you can hire them for a chapter by the word. And so my all of my critique partners, we used the same critique partner over there, and she was phenomenal. And so I would use her for a chapter or two at a time, and once she'd teach me what my crutches were or what my main, craft level issues were, then I didn't need her anymore, so it wasn't like you're hiring someone to read your full manuscript. So it's a great
Hmm.
resource. You also can find beta readers there as well and critique
Mm,
partners. So I'll have
I
to
didn't know
double
about that one.
check that
Yeah.
website for you to put in the show notes, but it was a fabulous tool. So I had done that too before I pulled in, especially the alpha readers, which you said are family and friends typically in the beginning.
And another thing you did that was very, very savvy, I want to point out, is that you are very picky and selective about your critique partners. A lot of people
Yes,
join a writing group and they become their critique partners, and that is usually, I think, not ideal. We have to go pick the people that we would pick to be friends with, to be close, to bring
absolutely.
into our inner circle and to bring into our homes. And it's not an instant thing. In most
Mm-mm.
cases, it takes a long time to figure that out. But once you have a critique partner too that you love working with, they are worth their weight in gold. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
And my two are my writing besties, but they're beyond that now. They're
yeah,
friends. And some of us have met in person and,
yeah.
have plans to meet in the future. And they're the people that you fall to the floor and scream and yell when they get a publishing deal as if it was your
Hmm.
own deal. I remember actually when my one of my critique partners got her first publishing deal. My youngest son is autistic. His therapist was at the house working with him, and my husband's working upstairs. He works from home, and she calls me And I knew when I got the phone call, and this was her third manuscript, and she's telling me she got the deal, and I'm screaming and I fall to the floor. And my son and the therapist run downstairs, and my husband's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "Dang it, I got a publishing deal." And that's who you want as your critique partner. Someone that's gonna,
Oh,
and I ugly cried as if it was my
oh,
own. And
that's
so you
fabulous.
find your people, and when someone's not your people, for whatever reason it may be, let them go because your person's
Yes.
out there. Your person's out there.
Yes. And let them go sooner rather than later. And if
Yeah.
people are listening and they're stuck in old critique groups or just get out, get out, get out, get out. You will never regret it.
Yeah.
May I ask you, what is the most exciting thing that you've ever discovered about or realized about your writing process?
Well, I think I kind of mentioned it earlier. It's my most exciting thing and my biggest struggle is that I'm an everything, everywhere, all at once type writer. I don't have a process where I have to sit in a certain spot and have a certain music on, drink a certain beverage, certain
Hmm.
time of day. I can write anywhere, any time of day with any type of beverage. The only thing I do like to write without like background noise like the news or sports or something, but as long as it's,
Yeah.
an ocean or whatever. So I don't, and I also use multiple different writing tools. I don't stick to one. I try new things. I write on my computer. I record myself on my iPhone. So I've tried to, I think that's helped my creative process in so many ways that I haven't tied myself to one particular routine, that if I don't have that routine, I'm disrupted creatively.
Hmm.
So that's probably what I enjoy the most is that,
Mm.
you know, tomorrow I'll be writing while my husband's, having a medical procedure done. And so it's a minor, but I'm bringing my computer with me and, I'll sit right there. And I know sometimes people are really routine oriented and that's great for them. For me, I need the opposite of that.
And knowing that is
Hmm.
enormous and so, so, so
Yeah,
helpful. What part of writing do you struggle with?
the same thing. I will have 800 tabs open on my desktop and so many documents on my desktop, your eyes want to cross. And probably the biggest thing is because I'm working on so many things at the same time, I can struggle to get something across the finish line. And so I know that about myself too. And so I know that I thrive with a deadline.
Mm.
So if I don't have a deadline from a publisher or an anthology I'm submitting to, et cetera, I'll create a deadline for myself. I do a lot of writing for authors to assist them, like you do,
Hmm.
writing developmental guides, etc. And so I'll go to my community and I'll say, I'm going to have this particular guide done on this date, and I give myself a realistic deadline. And I say, come yell at me if you don't have it in your inbox then. And so I think recognizing that your strengths can also be your challenges, and then putting some measures in place so you can overcome that when necessary. Sometimes, being distracted by shiny objects is where you find something creative. So that's kind of it's my area of strength and struggle.
But also knowing that about yourself. Again, we're coming back to this idea of knowing yourself. And I
Yeah.
just really like the idea of the external, and other people will hate this, but I am
Hmm.
an obliger of Gretchen Rubin's four tendencies. And if I tell somebody else that I will do it, then I will do it. Even though, like you
Yes.
tell your people that you're going to deliver this whatever it is to them, they're not going to come to your house with pitchforks. They may yell
No.
at you with exclamation marks online, but nobody really cares. But in
No.
our minds, it's what
Yes.
gets it over the line for us. And other people, like my
Absolutely.
my partner would definitely, she'd put on the brakes. She'd be like, "Oh, you want that now? Now you're not getting it." So you do have to know what kind of person you are. Can you share a craft tip about writing of any sort with us?
Yes. I I think this was kind of weird, but authors are weird, so maybe they'll get it. One of the things that I do, and I did a lot in crafting my young adult debut, is especially, well, this is specifically for dialogue, for writing dialogue, is I would spend a lot of time voice acting my characters in the
Mm.
car, at the park, taking a walk, and I'd hold my phone out so people wouldn't think I was crazy and they think I was talking on the phone, but actually I was recording it. So I think when dialogue is meant to be spoken, even if it's written. And I think a lot of dialogue comes off as inauthentic because it's never been spoken, it's only been
Mhm.
written. So I believe when you go out into the wherever you need to go, or even in your own home, and
Hmm.
you voice act your characters in a scene, you're going to get more authentic dialogue. And you're also going to be able to, I think, more develop their voice. So I did
Hmm.
that a lot. And then I also think what this tool does is it prevents um, something that I see a lot in submissions of mine in scenic dialogue, especially in pacey dialogue scenes, is where you have back and forth dialogue, and then all of a sudden we have a break in pace, and the character is thinking this very detailed flashback that pulls you out of the scene, that impacts the pace, and in reality, they would never have enough time in the real world to think all of that. And so I believe that when you do create your dialogue, speaking it, and then you go back and you transcribe it, and then you realize you absolutely drop in
Hmm.
small bits of interiority or
Hmm. Of course.
exposition, but
Yep.
it's smaller bits than if you have written it all out and then jump out of the scene in this giant flashback. So I think that's one of the biggest ways that speaking that dialogue can do. And I also, again, I have a theater background, so maybe that's why I do some of these things.
I can,
But I
I can,
also,
I can tell that you have
yeah,
that. I think that makes a ton of sense. Yeah.
yeah, and the next thing too is I also think that blocking scenes with other people is so important. So there is
And
a,
hilarious sometimes.
yes, yes. So my youngest daughter, who's 20, I don't know, I have so many children, I don't know what to do. She's 25, I think.
Uh-huh.
She was living with me at the time when I was in the beginning phases of drafting this novel, and there's particularly one scene I remember that is it's an attack scene where the person attacked fights back. And I really struggled with it. And I asked her, I said, "Do you mind blocking this with me?" And it was hilarious.
And for
And
people
so,
who might be wondering who don't have any kind of theater background, blocking is
yeah,
actually the stage direction for bodies. So where bodies
correct.
move in space across
Hmm.
the screen or a stage.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
where
go
you're
on.
standing, where your limbs are, the actual physical, it's not any of the dialogue or anything
Right.
else. It's just where the bodies are in the space. And so blocking that out with her, I realized the way I had written it in real life wouldn't have made sense. And for me as a writer and especially as an agent, plausibility is so important. And a lot of times readers don't notice it. I do. It's just something that's really, really important to me that when a reader reads something that I've written, that there's nothing that they're having to suspend disbelief. I write contemporary and I mostly read contemporary, but even in fantasy, you're asking your characters, your readers to suspend disbelief in where you are and the way the world works. But within that world, they have to be able to believe it's plausible.
Mhm.
So I think the recording the dialogue, the blocking the scenes, and then consume your work in multiple formats. I
Tell me more.
listened to, yeah, I listened to my work on the read aloud app or read the read
Mhm.
aloud mode on my computer, and
Mhm.
you do it long enough, and it sounds like a real voice. So
Mhm.
Kathy is like the narrator of my work from
I think his
Word.
name is Ted, and I put him on
Yeah,
1.4 speed because he speaks
right.
slowly
And
early
you do
and
get used to
otherwise.
it. And
Yeah.
they have a
Hmm.
lot more realistic ones too, but I think that's really, really important to hear your work. I think it's important to read it on something like a Kindle so you can't
Hmm.
revise.
Yep.
And so I reading it out loud to yourself, having someone out loud or someone read it out loud to you. Again, I use my daughter a lot to read things out loud to me when she was living with me. So when you consume your work in a lot of different, formats, I think that's where you catch a lot of things that maybe you otherwise wouldn't. So,
And also, that's a great one. I think a lot of people wouldn't have access to that. But if you can convince somebody that loves you to read it out loud to you, what would be so useful about that is that you'll be able to hear when they stumble because we can
yes.
think a sentence is smooth until somebody else tries to read it. And I'm like, what the heck is going on with that sentence?
Yeah, yeah. And that
Yeah,
electronic voice isn't going to stumble, but that
exactly.
person 100% is. And it wasn't the entire book, but there'd be scenes. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
struggling with this. Will you read this to me? And so that was very,
Oh,
very helpful.
you
So
have
those are
some
kind of,
really out of the box ideas and suggestions. I like the way that your brain works.
because that's all over the place.
As is mine. Maybe that's why I'm
Yes.
resonating here. What is the kindest thing that you've ever done for yourself as a writer?
I listened to my critique partner. So um, I got an R&R for my work, and it was a lovely
Which is a
R&R.
revise and resubmit from an editor
Yes,
who
thank
says,
you.
if you revise this and resubmit it, I will consider looking at it again. It's a promise of nothing, but it is saying,
Correct.
sure, send it in again if you want to.
Correct. Correct. And the content in it Most of it I resonated with. Some of
Mhm.
it I didn't know what it meant at the time. But then the editor also said, if there's anything that you're confused about, I'd be happy to hop on a call with you. So we did. We spoke for like an hour. This person gave me their time. And so I'm like, all right, I am going to do this. And I'm going to give myself a month deadline, which was not enough.
Mhm.
And by the time that month was done, my brain was an absolute noodle. And even though I felt good about my work, I felt like, can I do this? Because I'm so struggling right now with how I feel. And my critique partner said, all right, you are not going to look at this book for a month. And I'm putting a date in my calendar because I would mess with it all the time. I'm putting a date in my calendar and I will tell you when you can read your manuscript again. And so at that moment, I realized someone is taking over for me when I can't take over for myself right now. And so I let it go and I listened to her. And miraculously, during that month that I was not touching my work and sending out a million queries, I got an offer of representation from a literary agent, and I got an offer of publication from a different publisher and a smaller press that I did go with. And the R&R that I got from the other publisher, I thanked them profusely. We are still friends today. I have friends that are published there, and and I'm like, you are the reason why that I got this deal. And so it all turned out great, but it was me learning to let go. And
Mhm.
that's again, having those critique partners that see you when you can't see where you are is so
Mhm.
important.
You are just doing a heck of a sales job for critique partners, really. For the right critique
Yes.
partners, the ones that you
And
have
that,
selectively and been
yeah,
picky about choosing. Yeah,
yes,
what a beautiful friend. That's so cool. And I bet she fell on the floor when you called her to tell her that. She screamed
yes,
and also fell on the floor.
100%.
That's gorgeous. May I ask you to tell us about a specific moment that you knew you had ink in your veins?
I think it's been since birth. I mean, I have always been a reader. So I think I had ink in my veins. It was other authors' ink, still
Hmm.
ink in my veins. To me, reading saved my life legitimately. I was living in an abusive trailer park with an older guy, and I would read Stephen King to remind me, girl, things could be worse. And
I love him.
then I'd read Danielle Steele to remind me things could and should be
Be
better.
better.
And then I had a 20-year career as a youth librarian, and I loved matching the right book to the right reader. And sometimes those books would change those kids' lives. Sometimes it was just pure entertainment, but I loved doing that. And then when as a librarian, I had the privilege of being able to attend writing conferences and meet authors and hearing them speak. I'm like, from all walks of life, all backgrounds, just I'm like, I could be that. And I always had a story I wanted to tell. So I decided that I want my book to be a book that a librarian can put in a kid's hand and it can change their life. So I started
Mm.
penning so then my ink came into my veins when I
Mhm.
was a youth librarian. I started penning my debut, my young adult debut behind my circulation desk.
Oh my goodness. That is a beautiful origin story for the book.
Yeah.
You were
And
writing it behind the desk.
in a library. And
Oh,
it's funny because I used to say, don't tell my principal. And he was my biggest cheerleader. And he's not my principal anymore. And I'm not in the
yeah,
library
yeah.
anymore. But he laughs and he read the book and he's like, I'm so proud of you. And I'm like, you know how many hours I spent in that library writing that book? He goes, it's fine. It's totally fine.
I used to work 911 and at 2 in the morning, that is when I was
Exactly.
writing. In between the
Right.
phone calls, that is what we do.
Absolutely.
That is gorgeous. Will you tell us about the best book that you have read recently and why did you love it?
Can I share two?
Yeah, of course you can.
Okay. Well,
I'm
one is
greedy this
still
way. This is always for me.
one I'm still reading, and it's one I'm reading with my daughter, and I'm absolutely loving it. It's given me such a break from all the stress in life, and it's
Mm,
my first Ashley Herring Blake, and it's Delilah Green Doesn't Care.
she's
Have
so
you read
great.
it? Oh
I know I
gosh,
haven't read that one.
she's
No.
amazing. So my daughter has read most all of her work, and she's like, "Mom, I really want you to read this," and I love that she wants me to read what she's reading. And she lives in Virginia Beach. She did live here, but her wife is a military nurse. And so now I'm so used to having her in my backyard. And now she's hundreds of miles away from me. So books, we've always read together, but books now are really our connective tissue. And so we're reading it back and forth, and I'm absolutely loving it. And loving that, again, I have that connection with her. And
That
so I
was my
haven't finished.
connection with my mother. I'm not going to think too hard
Yeah.
about it because it'll make me cry, but that was our connection. Our love language was books, always
Yep.
back and
Yep.
forth.
And so my other favorite book is a thriller that I just read. I've read the whole thing, and I read that one actually in a book club that my older daughter runs. So fortunately, I've passed the love of reading on to my
Yeah,
girls, not so much on my boys, but that's okay.
it'll have.
Um, and so that one was a thriller, and that was None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell.
Oh
And
my God, I love
oh
that
my
one.
gosh,
I love
oh,
that one. I love
what
everything
I
she does.
oh, same. But
Yeah.
what I loved about this one is the unique structure that she
Hmm.
uses. And
Hmm.
so as a podcaster yourself,
Hmm.
I have seen, and for people that haven't read it, she combines podcast snippets with documentary snippets with narration to tell this just chilling story of one woman interviewing another woman in a podcast and finding out things that just go absolutely haywire. It's
And it does not
so
let you
good.
down. I could not,
But
I didn't know where it was
it
going to
does
go.
not
I
let you
didn't know
down.
how it would end. None of it. Yep.
No. But she tackled a very um, high task structure just amazingly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a great one to listen on audio because the voice
Mm.
acting in that is incredible. I typically do audio and read so I can listen to it when I'm walking, read
Hmm.
it when I'm, at home, but the audio version of that is just stellar because of all the different voices and it wasn't one voice actor like in a lot of audiobooks.
Yeah.
It was a different voice actor for everyone. It was just, oh, loved it.
Oh,
So
I
those are
always
my
love
those
that.
are my top two recent ones.
Thank you so much for those. Will you please tell us about your debut?
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned, it is inspired by my lived experiences. In the late 80s, I was homeless, and then I ended up in a rundown trailer park with an abusive older man and pregnant. And so that's not how I expected my life to turn out.
Hmm.
And so kind of started writing it as memoir-ish, and then I kind of realized that wasn't going to give me the ending I wanted my main character to have. And so I call this fictionalizing your past trauma, where
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
follow a standard story structure and you can make the bad guy get what they should have deserved. And so that was the most wonderful part of it. But also, it enabled me to fictionalize a really bad experience of my life. And the story is about the power of becoming your own hero. And for a lot of teens in crisis, they don't have someone to come rescue them. And so how can they find the strength to rescue themselves? And so that's the theme of it. And it also has just recently won a Florida State Book Award, which I'm very proud of. Actually,
Congratulations.
thank you. My daughter and I are going on next Thursday to the state capitol for the award ceremony.
Oh
And
my
yeah,
gosh, that's
and
incredible, Amy.
thank
Good job.
you. Thank you. And she is the baby that I had at 17 years old, and she's
Mm.
now a 36-year-old board certified elder law attorney. So it all turned out great. Um,
Wow.
and and so I'm hoping, and I work with a local nonprofit that supports teens in crisis because that's very important to me because I did have resources that I had the access to that a lot of teens don't, that enabled me, that gave me some hope. And mostly it was librarians and teachers and guidance counselors. And so in the back of the book, I have a note to teen readers that, if you are a teen in crisis, go to an adult, go to a parent, go to a parent's friend, go to a friend's parent, go to someone and get help sooner than my main character did. And then if you are a teenager that is in a loving home, thank them and then be a friend to someone who needs it. And then I have an author's note to the adults that have read the book that, you know, we can't sit back and let teens in crisis not get access to the resources they need. And so just kind of challenging, especially teachers and parents of friends that have friends in crisis, and some things that you can do, some actionable things that you can do to help teens in crisis. So that's a big platform of mine. And this book has allowed me a tool to be able to go and, share this as a story that's a personal story, but also that it doesn't have to stay cyclical, which poverty and trauma can, that there are ways to get out of it.
And you are that living proof, and you put that proof into the book, which is called, we should say, Worth It.
Yes,
And
worth it.
it is available out there. Um, I'm so glad that you wrote that, and I'm so glad that it's being honored. And I hope that you enjoy the ceremony from top to
I'm so
bottom.
I'm so excited, and the fact that she's going to get to go with me
Yes.
and we can share that
Oh,
moment together. And so there are some, everybody puts Easter eggs in books, and I put a lot, obviously her name's changed everything, but I put a lot of Easter eggs in there just for her. And,
oh,
so that's been super fun. She's a big Jane Austen fan, so there's a lot of Jane Austen references and Easter eggs to other novels that I was reading going through that time of my life, because literature has always been a huge part of who I am and of people that are probably listening to this podcast, And
that
so we all
is.
resonate with the power that books have to change lives.
Speaking of the power of books to change lives, you are also doing that in your other life
Hmm.
as a literary agent. Do you want to tell us a
Hmm.
little bit about that? And if you are open to queries, what's going on with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was my critique partners that said, Amy, you should be an agent. And so
I
again,
can
I
see that,
listened, I
yes.
listened to them and so I now am an agent at the Purcell Agency, and I'm currently closed to submissions. I rep picture book authors, I rep young adult, mostly in the contemporary space, and I opened for thrillers last month, which is what I'm looking for next across all age ranges, so middle grade through adult. And I put an offer in on one that I absolutely was in love with. Like, if I don't get this, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. And this author got, I don't know how many offers of
One
representation,
of
but
those.
multiple,
Uh-huh.
multiple. And eventually the author chose, and they were kind to me. It wasn't me. So just
Hmm.
for authors to know, agents get let down too.
Yeah.
You find your dream
So good
agent
to
and
remember.
then you get a pass. It happens to us.
Yeah.
So, and I will always be this author's cheerleader and will buy their book when it comes out because I fell
Hmm.
in love with it. So I'm definitely on the look for another thriller. I'm going to the Writing Day workshop pitch event here in Tampa next month in April. And so I'm going to be hopefully being pitched some good thrillers there, but probably will open up. I'm expecting maybe May 1st to open for
Okay.
thrillers again. And I
2025.
have, if you want to go ahead and look on my manuscript wish list, I have pretty exact what I'm looking for in the
And
thriller
is that on
space.
Query Tracker or on your website
It's on Query Tracker and
yeah.
it's on Manuscript Wish List.
Okay,
So
perfect.
if you search me up, it tells at the top exactly what type of thrillers that I'm looking for. If you can comp Lisa Jewell,
If you can come, Lisa Jewell, you can come to my hot tub party. And I don't even have a hot
right?
tub. But like
You
yeah.
can come to my hot tub party.
You
I
can
do
come to
have one.
mine.
Right. Well,
Oh, all right.
I want to come to yours because you're in New Zealand,
That's
right?
true. That's true.
Do
And I
you
have a
do
friend
you
with a hot tub not very long, not just a few blocks away.
do you live in the Marlborough region?
I don't. I live just north of that in Wellington, but the Marble region is on the South Island, but just the 20-minute jump on a plane away.
Uh,
Yep. That's,
my dream is to go there. My favorite Sauvignon Blanc wines are Marlborough
I was gonna
region.
say that's
They're
where
the
all the wine's
abs
from. Yep.
all the best.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you for all of that. Where can we find you out there online?
Well, I'm really trying to move my writing community over to Blue Sky for obvious
Yeah.
reasons from the
Yep.
other platform.
Yep.
It hasn't really happened yet, but you can find me there, Blue Sky at Amy Nielsen. I'm still active on the other place. I have a beautiful writing community, and I love all my authors, agents, editors that I've met there. And I don't see any of the bad stuff because I don't follow any of that stuff over there.
Hmm.
But that's where I am most active, but trying to transition. So I'm at Amy Nielsen 06. And then if you would like to find out the resources that I have available to authors. I have some free webinars on polishing your submission packet for querying, just a ton of different stuff. That's over at Amy Nils or www.amynielsenauthor.com. And that's AMYNIELSEN.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being on the show. It has been an absolute treat to talk to you, and I'm left feeling
Thank
completely
you.
inspired. Thank you,
Me
Amy.
too. Thank you so much.